my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Absolutely fine. And like, if at any point you're like, actually, I gotta cut loose, and we want to do like a part two, absolutely, totally
Oh
fine.
my gosh, everyone like joined the party, and I'm like, oh no,
I,
so sorry.
I did warn them ahead of time, like, hey, it's gonna be like a pre-show, so we're all just gonna be ridiculous
Yeah,
up until Lylah's ready, and then y'all gotta go, and they're like, oh, okay.
they all like knew the drill. They were like, oh,
It's actually not the first time I've had to call SOS. I had an interview where they messaged me as I was going there live. They're like, "Hey, my internet just went out. I'm gonna go to the Starbucks. I'll be right back." I was like, "Hey, what's everyone doing right now? I need to stall." Because the thing with the TikTok lives is it's great because it allows people to like constantly see it. Problem is that if you don't go live when you say you're gonna go live, they like besmirch your name,
right.
and I am attempting not to do that. So I will. I still have to go live, but like we can absolutely reschedule or push it back if you need the time.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. I'm just gonna move my light. I didn't realize how dark it was in here. I'm just gonna try and adjust this.
You're good. Absolutely get comfortable because you're going to be here for about hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay.
I panicked. How do I get out of here?
Okay, that's a little better.
I can see your face clearly now.
Okay, good.
So how are you feeling now?
Um, a lot better. That was so weird and scary, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Because I've been waiting all day to come on live with you.
Your buddy was like, "Wait, hold on. I got a finale. Just watch."
Yeah. Goodness gracious. Anyway, if anything like changes and I have to go lie back down on a heating pad, I'll let you know. But for now, we're doing good.
Fingers crossed, everyone, knock on wood in the comments. But absolutely, we can also, like, if at any point that needs to happen, we can cut it there and just restart on another day. Not a worry. I do have CapCut, so I can put videos together.
Okay, awesome.
But we'll go ahead and start. So, what I would love for them to know is who you are, what books you have out, like any events you're going to, any like places you're going to be, or where they can see your lovely face. And then, do you have any other socials other than TikTok you would like to announce?
Okay. Hi, I'm Lylah Taylor. I am a newly published author. I have one book out. It is A Monster's Prey. It is a dark monster romance. I did not know I was going to be writing in this genre and then did and am now going to be releasing a second one, not a book two to this, like a separate standalone. Um, but then I think my dabble in the monster romance will take a back seat as I shift to like my other fantasy paranormal romance stuff that I originally planned before I got like sidetracked with this. Um, but yeah, my next book, I don't have a release date for it yet. Just working through edits and going through like alpha readers and things right now. But it is called Chosen by a Monster, and it is available for pre-order. That book is like a portal fantasy to a monster realm where the area she goes to is kind of like the government's kind of mafia style, and she's a human from Earth who then goes through the rift and then is sold at an auction and becomes assistant to the morally gray sector leader. And there's some plot within that world that like is, we follow the main character Safina as she adjusts to this new reality. um so it's kind of fun when I describe it in like short terms. I'm like, oh, it's like a portal mafia assistant to the like morally gray leader. It makes me feel like I'm dabbling into like some Lizzie Strong style plot because I'm like, it just keeps going. There's more stuff on top. Like, I think it's just so funny. I'm like, you know what? I can fit everything into this book.
Yes, you can. And romance authors are the best at fitting everything in.
You tell me.
Um, I love that. Are there any other socials or like, do you have a website that people can peruse?
No website as of now. I do have a Instagram, Lylah Taylor Writes. And I do have a Facebook page, but it's kind of embarrassing. There's like nobody over there, and I don't post over there so often. So it's like, well, it's there, but it's not as consistent as like TikTok, and then it's Instagram, and then it's Facebook.
To be honest, I also have a Facebook page. The only time I get on it is when Kat tags me in things, or like when I have like official news. I'll post some things there. But pretty much everyone's like, "Oh, you have a Facebook page? Why?" I don't know. Like it felt like I needed to.
Someone at some point said you should get this, and we're like, okay, but like now it's there, and we're like, I don't know what to do with you.
I don't know because like I don't know how to engage with like the pages on Facebook to like I can post TikTok. I know how TikTok works. I know how Instagram hashtags work. I can use Twitter even though it's imploding. Like yeah, authors just have to have all the things, which I do, which is also why you'll see the same like Instagram image on all like Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr
Yeah,
because they fit on each one. It's like no wasted breath here. It's the same post.
yeah. I'm like, I'll take my Canva image and I'll reformat it, and it will go across all platforms.
Right? How has Canva literally saved my life? The best investment I've ever made. The best investment ever.
Yeah,
Use all of the parts.
yeah. To answer your other question from earlier,
Mm.
have no plans to attend any events. They're hella expensive, and I'm in Canada.
Yes, yes,
So
they
like,
are.
so I just had my friend sign up for her first one, and when she told me how much the sign up fee was, I said, "I'm sorry." Yeah,
Like I really want to go to RomCon, even though like I didn't get in as an author, but it was $300 for an author table, and I was like, ooh, I wish I had that kind of author money, and like maybe in the future when I have the author that like when I'm raking in the money, like we're talking Tiffany Roberts, Katie Roberts, like the big CM Nacosta money, then yeah, sure, I'll go to a bunch of events, but um I still have to pay for gas. So
yeah. Literally, literally. I was like, I want to go to these events, and I understand like networking is important and stuff, but if it will make me go in the hole from the money I make from my books, then maybe right now is not the best time to
yeah,
invest
that
in.
that's 2024 Lizzie's problem, not 2022.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm like, it would be so much fun to go. Like, I would love to meet, all the people you interact with on TikTok and like all the friends you make. But as of right now, it's not in the cards. But I'm hoping by the end of next year, I'll have like 5 to 6 books published. And so like
Hmm.
maybe if I'm seeing some sort of like consistency over the next 12 months, like maybe I can fork out $500 to go, to a weekend long event or something. But I mean,
Right.
plus flights, which would be like probably around $1,000. And I'm in Canada, so like depending on even where it is and how far I have to fly, like so I don't know. I would love to, like one day I would love to, but
Mhm.
for now, like I've got a line of credit I've got to pay off. Like
Right. And the fact that you're in Canada makes it so much worse because all the good ones are in America, and like I hate that for you.
yeah,
There's it's like Flowers, Gowns, and Crowns, or like Books, Gowns, and Crowns
yeah.
is here in Florida.
Mhm.
It looks so fun, but it
A
is
lot of them are.
425 to go. I do not have that kind of money.
Yeah, not right now.
No.
We'll manifest it. It will come in eventually.
Right,
But for now, we're just prioritizing the finances.
right. The bills have to come first, and then we'll talk about gowns and crowns.
Yeah. A lot of the events are in Florida, I'm noticing. I think I've heard of what, like three in the past like 2 months that people are going to, and I'm like, dang.
Yeah, Shameless just recently, about 2 weeks ago, was here in Florida. Brooke and a whole bunch of authors. I think SJ, was it SJ or SM? Uh, a couple, honestly, hundreds of authors were there, but I know Brooke was there because she was showing us pictures like throughout the whole event.
Yeah, I saw her
It
TikTok.
looks so fun.
You get to see everybody together, and it's like, aw, FOMO.
I wish you guys look so like you're having so much fun.
Yeah.
Maybe another time.
Mhm.
Uh, but I'm going to Rockford, Illinois next year. It's only 5 to 10. That is fantastic.
Like five
Tables for
total.
50. That's reasonable.
That's cool.
You have to find the smaller ones. Um, but so to start off the official interview, the first question is what is your big author dream? And you can do like one like official author dream, like having 50 published books, New York Times. And I always suggest like slipping in a funny one, like having a cosplayer cosplay one of your characters.
Right. Okay. I did see you ask this question in another person's interview, and I was like, oh, good question. Good question. Um, I think I'm just kind of ridiculous. So I only started writing in 2020, and and it starts off ridiculous because I, for a long time throughout my 20s, I was like, a book is one of those bucket list items that I want to do. One day I want to write a
Mhm.
book, but I had no idea what it was about. Even fiction wasn't even in my realm of possibility. So, literally, for like, I don't know, 6 years, I was like, it'd probably have to be like a Christian memoir because I had like joined religion in my 20s and like I have since left, but at that point in my life, it was the only thing I could like I
Right.
could know at all. I was like, maybe it'd be a memoir and I'd talk about like my stories and like blah, blah, blah. So for years, it was just one of those things that sat in the back of my mind. And then it was like, what, 2019 or something. And I had been binging the Marvel movies as I do, the marathons. And I was like, oh, like building some sort of world to get totally lost in because I was getting lost in it because like the hard things in life and then you like get into something, right? And it just you immerse yourself in it and I was like I would love to create something like that just to get lost in. And then I was like, okay, I'll start off by saying I am not a big reader even now,
Mm.
which is blasphemous. But I have been like a really big movie watcher. And so I was like, if I were to write a book about something like fantastical to get lost in, I'm like, what hasn't been done a lot? I'm like, there's Twilight and vampires. You got like werewolves, like superheroes are done. And I was like, what can I get into that hasn't been like played out to death kind of already? And I had this amazing, totally original idea. I'm like, fairies. And then, okay, yeah. Anyway, so I start writing that book. And when I started writing, I had no clue about marketing, genres, target audiences. So it was just an open document on Google and it just started filling up with this plot. No like conceivable structure or plan. It was just happening. And I started writing it and so I started writing that in like, I don't know, March 2020 or something like that. And then I found Book Talk in
Mm.
like September 2021. So I was writing book one kind of that whole time, not really structured at all, just like whenever I felt motivated, like I think I'm going to write my book, which would be like, oh, I'd sit down and maybe bust out 2,000 words for a couple hours and then I wouldn't touch it for 6 weeks. Like very
Fair.
very unstructured, very unorganized. Um and so when I found Book Talk, like my whole world kind of opened up. I found the Late Night Writers Club, which is a group that I'm a part of, hosted by author Eva Moore here on TikTok. And she does sprints like twice a day for like
Hmm.
half ish, like 4 days out of the week. Anyway, so I started doing the sprints and I started like learning a consistent schedule. Yeah, shout out to Late Night Writers Club. Um, and it was not long after that or around the same time that I discovered like KL Morrison and AK Mulford because they would be doing their lives like every Wednesday and then just randomly and talking about stuff. And it was listening, this was like even before AK released High Mountain Court,
Hmm.
in the process of doing it. And her and Kate would talk about kind of like the business side of writing a book, whereas I had just been sitting in a document writing about fairies. And um, it really changed my perspective, and I was learning a lot from listening to their lives. I learned about, like book covers and like fitting your genre, and I learned about like the ways that you should like learn to market and how to find your target audience, and like even the title of your book, because I still didn't have that at that point. And all of this information was, seems now looking back on it, I'm like, well, yeah, duh. But like I had no idea. And so I started learning about it, and I was like, okay, well, well, damn. And so when I started writing my book, I was writing it in like envisioning this kind of world like the first Harry Potter. They're like 8-year-old children, okay? And like I was like 8 years old when Harry Potter came out. And so I was writing, envisioning that mentality, but my main character is 17 years old. So there's like a disconnect here between how I was writing, who my audience was for, how old my main character was. Anyway, by the time it's finished, like it's finished, it's a completed duology now. It's not published because I think I might need to rework a lot of it. But by the end, I'm like, it's kind of like a Disney Channel show kind of book. Like one of the main characters, and when people read this, they were like, how old are your characters? And I'm like, I don't know, okay? But like he's in grade 12, and at one point the teacher calls his name and he turns around, he's got pencils sticking out of his nose. Like that kind of like really wholesome, I feel like Disney Channel kind of humor. And he's kind of like flighty and ditzy, and he's not like a main character, but he's a character. And so when people didn't know that that's kind of the vibes I was going for, they're kind of like this is really bad. So I was working towards publishing that book, and I got connected with a small press, and they took it on. But then things like slowly kind of like imploded with that over the year.
Yep.
And so I have it, and I wrote the second book. It's not fully edited. The first book is pretty much edited unless I choose to go back and like now go at it through a different lens. But even at this point,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not sure because I don't necessarily know how to fix all the things that might need fixing, or if I just let it be what it is. I don't know.
Right.
But so those fairies, by the time I finished writing my book, after I finished writing it, I remembered, I'm like, oh yeah, these are basically like Fern Gully fairies. Like this is a, a different version of Fern Gully. And I didn't even think of that when I was writing it. But I think it's so funny now looking back how I'm like, what's something that hasn't been done before in the YA industry? I know, fairy. And then I come onto Book Talk and it's ACOTAR this, ACOTAR that, Faye this, like all this stuff. And I'm like,
Oh,
I wasn't as original as I thought I was. So kind of very chaotic. So that is like a adventure fantasy young adult, but like maybe leaning towards the younger adult. Like
mm-hmm.
maybe some like 12 to 14-year-olds could really jam with that. I don't know. Um,
Right.
but that was under a different pen name too. And then I was like, oh, well, I think I want to write spicier stuff. And I hadn't really decided which direction of like genre that I planned on
Mm-hmm.
going. This is nowhere near your question that you asked, and I've been going off.
I'm having a fantastic ride. So, and also one of the questions was, how did we get here? I'm living for this. Let's continue.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll circle back, and if I don't remember, I'll ask. um. Okay, so then because reading, I have read, but mostly what I've read in my repertoire has been historical romances. So I
Mm.
hadn't even read fantasy books until after I wrote my own fantasy book, which terrible planning, but it's what happened. And so, yeah, your 8-year-old would read it. Yeah, Eva's daughter. How old is she? I forget. She beta read it for me, and even her comments were like, "Yeah, this kind of seems a little bit middle grade." And I'm like, perfect, perfect. Um, yeah, she's sour and like, I'm not diagnosed, but honestly, TikTok makes me think sometimes. It's a possibility.
The signs are there.
Yeah, the signs are there. And then I saw with the same small press that I was being published with, they were hosting an anthology. And the anthology was a story that had to have like dragons and fae and like, I think maybe it could be clean, but it also could be new adult and whatever. And at this point, I had kind of started reading. I had read a book. Honestly, I could like probably count a couple dozen of the books I've read. I have not read a bunch, but I read a book called Starstruck by Brenda Hyatt. And that main
Mm.
character was 15, and that's like about like this kid, and he's a Martian essentially, but like he's from Mars, but like the people are originally from Earth, but they went to Mars, and then she meets him, and they have like this kind of fated mate kind of connection. Anyway, so I read that was one of my first books that I read, and then I read Under the Black Banners by K.L. Morrison, which is like super spicy paranormal, and I absolutely
Yup.
became obsessed with it. And then I read High Mountain Court by A.K. Mulford, and then I binged. I don't know what the whole series is called, but it's A Secret in Onyx by Jessica Florence. I binged her
Mhm.
trip in like a weekend. And so I had started taking on these books where I was starting to get familiar with like the fantasy genre because I hadn't been before. And then I didn't plan on ever writing about dragons. I was like, man, not my thing. And then as the months went on and the deadline got closer and closer, so like procrastination, I
Yep.
sat and I thought, what if I did write something? What would the story even be about? And then I came up with a story, and I wrote 20K in 2 weeks about this like spicy Fae dragon shifter novella. And I was like, I love everything about this. And then the anthology didn't end up getting published. So I have that still like sitting, like it could be published, but I also kind of plan on putting a big book with it. So I'm waiting until I get started on that so it would make sense. Anyway, then I was like, okay, I kind of want to start to write more like new adult stuff. So then I started to write a Fae fantasy. And when I got 29K into my Fae fantasy, I saw this cover. This was a pre-made,
Mhm.
and I am like obsessed and addicted to looking at pre-made covers on Facebook. I am part of like multiple dozens of groups of people who post cover. I look multiple times a day. It's like window shopping,
Mm.
but can be dangerous because sometimes I buy them. And I
Right.
had no plans for a monster romance. Like I was getting into the Fae stuff, right? Like, and I had never read a monster romance. And then I
I'm
wrote
starting
my
to see a trend here with you.
yeah, I have a lot of unearned confidence, and I will start something thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a huge success at this, and then I get into it, and then the reality hits. So I don't have a problem starting things, but once I get into it, I think, oh well, that was probably a little like half cocked when I went into that, but oh well, like I guess here we are now. Anyway, so I wrote this. How does it compare to other monster romances? I don't know. I can't tell you. I have read one. I read Titan by Gillian Graves, and that's the
Mhm.
only romance that I know besides this one and this next one that I'm writing. Does it fit in the genre? Does it compare to others? Someone will have to tell me because I don't know. I don't have this kind of information. But I'm out here and I'm doing stuff. I'm putting words on paper. I'm trying to create stories. I'm trying to like learn about, the craft of writing and character development and world building as I go. And I'm loving it. And I'm having so much fun. So, what are my author goals?
Yep.
Because that's a perfect segue back into the question that you actually asked. Um, my goal when I was the reason why I brought that up, oh God, that was a long tangent, was because when I was my first book, I all the unearned confidence in the world. A book about fairies hasn't really been done. It's going to hit the market. If I could tap into just, a small percent of what J.K. Rowling tapped into, oh, I'll be set. I'll be good to go. I'm going to sell like 400,000 copies within my first year. I'm talking incredibly unrealistic goals. So what
Mhm.
so what are my author goals? All of the goals. I want infinite infinite book sales, infinite series, and like I had joined 20 books to 50K near like the start of my journey, and that's when it kind of like made me realize like, oh, this is a long game. And I came in here thinking I was going to write this one-off book with,
Right.
not a creative writing degree, not a bunch of reading in the genre for years and years to know what's going on. I just came in thinking I'm going to do all the things and be super successful. But so now I have a little bit, I'm a little bit reined in, I think. I'd like to think. Um, and at this point, it's like, I don't know what to expect, but I'm always hoping for the best.
Mm.
Like, I'm not expecting the worst because I do have, like, some things I want to hit. Like with A Monster's Prey, I was like, I want to be in the green after my first month of release, right? Like, which cannot happen with a new author. But luckily I did hit the green. And so now I have that kind of like expectation for the next book, right? Like you
Hmm.
hope that the more you put out, the more it will grow, right? Like
Right.
you, you hope that it's not just gonna slowly dwindle, which
Dwindle off.
yeah, which I mean it could, like fair. People could be trying my book and reading it, and I can see, the numbers of my page reads and whatever. But they could also be hating it and putting me on a list where they're like, I'm never reading anything she ever writes again. So like I don't
My
know.
worst nightmare.
Yeah, so I don't know how this second book will go, but I feel like after that launch, maybe I'll have like a better idea. But also after that launch, I'm kind of switching genre categories. Like I just started a week ago or so, um, a fairy tale retelling book, which I didn't plan on writing. I still have that Fae Fantasy sitting at 29K that I'm so excited to continue. But I just bought two more covers for two retellings that I haven't really planned, but now I have one planned, and so I'm writing it. I'm 8K into it. I don't know how long it's going to be. Anyway, so things are just like, what can you expect from me as an author? I don't know, but it won't be consistent. That I
I
guess that I guess that's what I'll say. It'll be fantasy stuff, and as of right now, I'm in my era of captivity. That's my niche right now. Book about captivity. My next book, she gets sold to, well, she gets sacrificed from Earth to the monster realm through the rift, and she gets purchased at auction. So like she's like a human servant. So like kind of captivity situation. And this retelling that I'm doing right now, my main character is constantly being kidnapped from one party to the next because they all want her. So like another captivity situation. So as of now, the theme of Lylah Taylor is like dark captivity. But the
okay.
dark is not super super dark. I would say it's kind of on like the light, like on the gray side of dark.
We're talking hazy smoke.
Yeah, yeah, some hazy smoke. Like the themes are like maybe a little uncomfortable, but nothing extremely explicit, on page or anything. Um, but then I also already have, because buying covers is a problem, like I said, I already have another like Wolf Shifter duology. I have both of the covers for it, and I'm so excited to write that. I haven't started writing it, and that'll be paranormal. I don't plan on it being dark, but I don't know.
We'll see when we get there.
Yeah, the Fae Fantasy, I don't plan on it being dark. It is adult. It's a little violent, but because there's like definitions of what dark is, right? Like
Right.
it has to
And
fall into a handful of things in order to fall into that.
I think dark, well, the problem with romance in general is that romance is so vague. It's an umbrella term.
Mhm,
So, like, we have different genres of romance itself,
mhm.
and then each genre of romance has its own umbrella. So, like, starting with monster romance, like, there's so many vast variations of monster romance because, like, me and Cleo Evans do, like, author or like office monster romance where it's like in a modern sense, but like there are monsters there, right? And
Yeah,
then we have people like Fenley Fen and CM Nacosta also does like the modern thing where CM Nacosta just does whatever she wants in her fantastic area. It's like a city, so it's not necessarily business oriented, but then like Fenley Fen and Ruby Dixon having just humans falling into monster places where they don't belong. And so like it's like falling into the ocean and being surprised that there are sharks, right?
yeah,
So like there are vastly different sides of monster romance and there's everything in between. And then like that doesn't even include the new like burgeoning era of sapphic and queer monster romances because How to Find a Girlfriend When You're a Terrifying Space Tentacle Monster, I believe is the title. That one's really big on Twitter right now. It's on my TBR. So like, there's so many variations, and then there's dark romance, which could mean that the content is dark, could mean the romance itself is dark, could
mhm,
mean that it's taboo. Like,
yeah.
there's so much under it that you could be like, this is a dark romance, and no one has, unless you tell them what the story's about, they have no idea going in because it could mean a million things.
Yeah. And that's why marketing is like so key. And honestly, I don't even know what like the tropes are that I write until someone identifies it for me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's in there because I see the whole story, right? Like I have
Right.
an idea. So, um, until like someone brings it to my attention, I'm like, oh yeah. And if I say, oh, this is a dark monster romance, and someone has read a bunch of dark monster romances and love it, and they come to mind, but I haven't specified that like their relationship isn't dark. They could have been expecting that their relationship is dark and therefore like be upset or disappointed. And they're like, this isn't what, I wanted. And therefore like this book
Right.
doesn't live up to my expectations. So like, it's so hard because I'm like, I don't know exactly who my readers will be, which is why I just try and like talk about like aspects of my plot or maybe like things that happen in my
Mm-hmm.
plot or like some of the like schminks that are in my plot because I mean those get me right. Like if I see something on like a TikTok, I'm like straight to Kindle, like add it to my TBR.
Solid.
Yeah.
So then, speaking of TBRs, what are like your ultimate recs? So if someone was like, "Hey, what are your favorite books?" Which ones are you dropping?
Oh,
And if you don't have like book recs, you can also do like movie recs that inspire you.
that's interesting. I really fell hard for K.L. Morrison's Under the Black Banners.
Mm-hmm.
Her book destroyed me, and I'm nervous for the third. I really liked that a Secret in Onyx trilogy. It's expanded now since the three I read, but that was really good. Oh, what else have I read? What even do I read? I don't even know anymore. Um, I'm currently alpha reading for two friends. Becca Wilson, she is currently writing. It's like a demon paranormal.
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure it's dark. If not, it's violent, so I'm pretty sure it's dark. But it's really, really good. And so I don't know. I think maybe I fall like into like the paranormal reading more so that
Mm.
like they stick out the most to me. Like I remember them the most. I can't remember. I'm sure I'm gonna get off this call and be like, oh my gosh, this book. Oh my gosh, and I love this book. And oh my gosh. And then like there's so many writer friends that I have that like I I literally have probably on my like open on my TBR, I probably have like 11 books on the go. Oh my gosh, okay, I just binged the Play to Prisoner series.
Mm.
I'm not finished Glow. I'm like 60% through Glow, but that's the fourth book. But I was really into that. That's kind of inspiration for the retelling I'm writing now. Like some elements of that story, but I thought that was so good. So I guess I like the dark stuff.
Fair.
Even though I came from like strictly historical romance before this. And like I love me a good historical romance. But I have like started reading some mafia romances. But I am a big believer in the DNF movement. So there
Yeah.
are plenty I have started. And if something just doesn't quite hook me, or if I feel bored and not interested, or there's words or phrases that are used multiple times, and I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. I
I'm
will
out.
put them down. So there's like a bunch of books I've started and stopped, a bunch of books I have on the go because I want to consume everyone's content. Um, but then I also just don't read that much compared to everyone else on this app. So I like fall behind very quickly. Like there's a billion books that if I could like dedicate a month to and read, like a book a day, I might get
Mm-hmm.
caught up, but trying to like write your own, have the mental capacity to sit down and read all the stuff and then just other life stuff. I just wish that I had more like capacity to like take it all in. But I think those would be my top recs as of now. Yeah. What
Don't
about
worry.
what
What
are
I
you?
read right now is horror and YA. So I'm not in genre.
Yeah. I also believe in hopping genres. I have multiple different genres planned and I'm like, will I read in them before I write them? Probably not. But I'll write them.
Fair. So, well, the biggest thing about being an author is you have to have some amount of audacity within you to like be like, no, I can tackle this plot or I can tackle this particular thing. Whether you have the context or not, at some point, a part of your brain has to be like, no, I can do this. It's getting past the 30% mark when your brain goes, wait a minute, can I do this?
Yeah.
That's the true pushing point. Like, can you push past the doubt about 30% in?
Yeah. And then what, maybe you're like getting close to the end too, and then you're like, wait, is there even a plot here? Does my does my character even like are they the same person like in the beginning and the end? Like enough to be like you're reading the same character, but also like enough to know that they've grown. Have they done that? Like there's so many like doubts and questions that at this point I'm trying to tackle maybe like one aspect of writing at a time as I like go through
Mhm.
the books. So as of now, with this retelling, I'm really working on my prose because there is like minimal prose in this because I'm just not the most prosy writer. And like that's okay that my writing is, a little bit more simple, easy to consume. Hi, Nemi. Oh. um, but I would love, I'll never achieve like Raven Kennedy level prose, but I have like taken notes from her books and like try to dissect them and think how does she come up with this and how can I apply like that formula to my own writing to try and
Mhm.
make I capture the things that she's capturing. So as of now, like that's kind of my focus for my writing. With my last or at the end of A Monster's Prey, I learned the rule, which is not a hard and fast rule. It's like trying and take out was and
Mhm.
felt.
Yep.
And I didn't know that before. So when I went through, it was like, oh my God, there's a lot of them. So then it was like learning, you take out like was looking for a stronger like sounding sentence, you just change it to looked. Like take out
Mhm.
a lot of the like wishy-washy. So that was something I started to like learn and apply to this. I didn't master it by any means, but from where this book started to where it ended up is a pretty big difference. But I'm really proud of that. And then I guess in my next book, Chosen by a Monster, I tried to be maybe a little more prosy, like with the wases and the felts. But it's really this next book that I'm like trying to focus on it to be better. And we're always gonna be like learning and growing. And so
Yeah,
I'm
every book is an evolution of your author craft.
gonna,
Um, you can absolutely like as my own example, you can feel my growth from when I started with the Knight and Mage to where I ended up with like Katos and Nymph on the Rocks. Like it is a full progression. So I 100% believe by this time next year, you'll be looking at your first book and being like, oh, that's that's child's play. Look at this. Just cranking them out.
yeah, I totally agree. Even now, because I've gone on live a couple times to like read like the first, like, the first chapter, first two chapters. And as I'm reading it, I'll come across sentences and I'll go, oof, like, oh,
Right.
I would fix that now, but obviously I can't. It's already out, you know what I mean? But like, and then some people who, you try you try and avoid the reviews on Goodreads and stuff, but I'm just nosy and I just want to see what's going on. But and then so some people are like, this writing, oh no, it's bad. And I'm like, you know what? Fair. I see it
Fair.
now. I didn't see
Good.
it before, but I see where you're coming from now. I'll try and work on it.
So obviously some advice you would give is like just don't get too like tied up in your book reviews, especially on Goodreads. Goodreads is a whole separate kind of can of worms. But what else would you if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I want to be an author just like you," what would be like your top 3 pieces of advice?
Ooh. Um, I would say, well, clearly I'm an expert and you should just emulate everything I'm doing because obviously I'm wildly successful and I know all the genres and everything to do with writing. But in case I'm not the foremost expert that you're going to go to, I would say be wary. This is like my own personal experience. Be wary of people who claim to be the experts to be able to help you, who will benefit from you like purchasing whatever they're offering.
Right.
When I first joined TikTok, and I know I'm not alone in this, there are specific creators who I feel like I don't know how the algorithm kind of knows. Like they're like, oh, like you're starting to get into, like book talks or author talk, writer talk or whatever. And I'm going to start showing you this person's content. And I came on here, obviously knowing nothing, discovered book talk and was like, oh my God, I know nothing. And then panicked because it was like, well, who do I even think I am that I could even start doing anything like this? I'm going to just embarrass myself, or I don't even know the steps to take, or like, what's an ISBN, or, all of these questions that you have. And there are certain accounts that I came across that at the time I would have taken as like writing gospel, and
Right.
did for a long time, and would, attend their, weekly lives, and I would ask questions and they would answer me, and I would feel like, oh, someone's holding my hand and someone's willing to walk me through this. And then as time like went on, and luckily I didn't have money to invest, or else I would have, and like people who claim to be, like super successful author coaches, or, like amazing editors. And I'm not saying that people who say that they aren't. I'm saying that when you're like starting out, and before like the first people you come across, like don't invest all of your like perception of success based on what they can offer you.
Mm.
That's like so weirdly specific, but I know that I'm not alone with certain accounts that like seem to just come up to new writers.
Mm.
And like I could have been in a bad way if I hadn't, one, been too poor to afford it in the first place. But like I even, based on someone's recommendation that I took as gospel at the time, I bought this book. This is a $50 book. I don't even have,
Yeah.
like, I didn't have $50 to spend on it. But because they said, yeah, Nemi, like,
Yeah.
because they said, like, get this, it will help you, I thought, well, they know what they're talking about, and like studying, and then I'll know because I'll have studied, and then I'll be, elevating my education or whatever. I get this book and I'm so excited to open it up. It's all for like nonfiction, like essay stuff. And I'm like,
Yep. Not
I'm like,
helpful at all.
and I've tried to like siphon, and I'm like, is there anything I can really pull from this? But like, I'm not like, what's that called? When you like referencing, like I'm not creating references and
Mm.
editorials and all these things. So now I've got Heather. Heather's so great. Heather's such a hype woman. I love her. Um, but now I have this book that I'm $50 out on, and I'm no
You've got a
closer to,
paperweight.
yeah, it's a really expensive paperweight. And
Yep.
every so often I'm like, well, maybe there's something through these. And then every time I sit down, I'm like, no, none of it.
No.
So that's unfortunate. And I would have invested in someone's like coaching services, because they were running a,
Home defense tool. Nemi said it's a home defense tool.
yeah,
Hey, when you swinging, just make sure you get that arc so you get that
yeah.
at the end, and it's a home defense tool.
Rapunzel had her frying pan. I got my coffee
Right,
at a
you've got
size.
nonfiction writers tools.
Um,
To each their own.
yeah. Okay. So that's one, is be weary of who deems themselves as experts. Because even I had started following this other account, and I won't name names, obviously, I'm not
Mm.
doing that. But there was one girl, and she was like making a YouTube, and she had a newsletter, and on her lives it would be like me and maybe one other person, but she would communicate back with me, and I felt like someone was there to listen to me, help guide me, talk to me a little bit about, like writing or whatever I was struggling on at that moment in time. And they had painted a picture that like they were also some sort of like coach.
Mm-hmm.
A year later, they still hadn't published their first book. So like, but I wouldn't have recognized that at the time. I wouldn't have thought I need to but I wouldn't have thought to like, cross reference, because they just seemed so
Right,
confident,
confident.
and they were presenting me information I didn't know. And now a lot of that information was valid, and definitely helped me. But if I hadn't gotten into the wider community to be able to hear conflicting opinions, and then maybe realize, oh, things aren't necessarily black and white, hard and fast when it comes to certain things in writing. But I
Mm.
thought they were, because that's what I was told. And I'm a parrot, okay? I love learning. And this is why I was so quickly adapted into religion in my early 20s, was that someone would tell me something, I would
Mm-hmm.
see value in it, I would spew it to anyone who would listen to me. So even with writing and getting into it, if an editor said, oh, maybe in this genre, if you're getting a cover, don't do this. I would think, and then someone would come along and say something and about that, and I'd be like, I know something about this. Don't do that. But I have no
Right.
real knowledge or expertise. I was getting it from, one person. Anyway, that's like a long-winded explanation to say, like, be wary of the advice you take. It's okay to take your time to learn.
Hmm.
I guess. Oh, I had another piece of advice. What was it? Oh, the imposter syndrome. Ugh.
Hmm.
It will hit, and it will hit hard. And
Yeah.
I've learned it's okay. It friggin' sucks. But it's okay when it hits hard. And it's okay to be taken down with it because it's not going to last. Even in those times where, like, for my first book, when I first had like my rounds of beta readers, you mean the writer
The
syndrome?
writer syndrome. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, honestly, I've never seen a community get hit harder by imposter syndrome than writers.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible. And at first I would really beat myself up for it. And then when I had betas for my first book and someone who, like, I didn't read their books, but they had books out, and so I really respected their opinion, and they came to me pretty early on and they were like, you know what, this isn't, I'm seeing some things that are repeating here, and I know that this just isn't going to be for me going forward, so I'm going to step back. And at that moment in time, I'd already known, right? Like, you learn you're gonna get 1 stars. People aren't gonna like your books. Like, you hear that stuff. I think in the back of your mind, like, you hope maybe it won't happen to me. But
Right.
when it actually did happen, I tried so hard to be okay with it. I crumbled for 2 days. I was down. I was like, I'm not even gonna publish. I'm not even gonna write anymore. There's not even a point. What am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. So, like, it hits hard, but then, you know, 48 hours after that, my document was back open and I was typing in it because I was excited to keep writing. And so, like, imposter syndrome will come and it will, like, try to annihilate you, but whatever you're feeling in that moment won't last. And it's okay to, like, feel down and out about it, but, like, it's also okay to get back up and persist regardless of it. So I think, I don't know, that those are like my biggest, just from my personal experience, like, be careful who you listen to and the advice that you take, and, like, know that when those moments come, like, they don't seal your fate as a writer.
Right. You can move past them, and they hit even the best, the strongest of us. I've seen authors who have been in the game far longer than I have been alive, and that are like, oh yeah, I wasn't feeling it, so I stopped it 10 years ago, and I just reopened it and went, oh yeah, no, I could totally, and they just crank it out, and it's a New York Times bestseller, and it's like, okay, you know, you impress me and beguile me. It's always so, like, heart, like, helpful to my heart when I see people who are, like, in the game and that are like the juggernauts, and they're like, oh yeah, every once in a while, like, I stop writing for like 24 to 48 hours, and I can't pick anything up, I can't look at anything, it's not bringing me joy, and I'm like, oh, so everyone goes through this.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew. So it's not just me.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of touched on a little bit of advice, what is either some, like, sage advice or, like, something that you have gotten from someone else that you've kept with you this whole time?
Maybe one of the biggest things, or the thing that, like, comes to mind the fastest, is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, when I would watch A.K. Mulford's lives with K.L. Morrison, um, Allie would talk about how she had been writing behind the scenes for like a decade, and how she says, like, she's like a self-proclaimed, like, nerd. She likes, like, the data analytics of marketing and trends and all those things. So she's, taken the courses and subscribes to the, you know, subscribe to the subscriptions, I guess. I don't know, that, like, help
Yeah, no.
help keep you updated with, how the trends are going in Kindle or things like that. Like, she would talk about it, and me coming in from writing about fairies alone in my bedroom who act like they're 8 years old, I guess, like, hearing from her that, like, she had spent so much time in, like, the craft at that point I couldn't grasp it because I was like, oh no, I'm super proud of my book. Like there's no way that I would not publish it. It's unpublished. But and I was like, she switched my mentality between like just doing it because honestly, what I thought it was like bloop bloop bloop, upload to Amazon. I thought that was the writing process.
Right.
Okay, you know, and then you learn, you learn as you go. But the fact that she came at it with such like an enthusiastic willingness to learn all of these other aspects, you know, like marketing and formatting and, you know, writing development and all of the areas that I hadn't even thought of before, it influenced me. I was like, wait, I should start like looking into all these things because it would be really cool to know that. And the fact that she came out with such a positive attitude didn't make it feel as daunting as like I need to learn about
Right.
marketing, formatting, and all these things. She was like, I like learning about this stuff, and I was like, oh, well, I like learning, and like maybe knowing this stuff would be cool. Have I done a lot of that? No, but I like there's writer podcasts or like books that people recommend, right? Like you always hear like what is it? On writing or on fiction by Stephen King. Like one of those
Mhm.
books you hear people like they suggest it and like, you know, pick up this and I'm like, oh, you know, I should get into that. But then I'm over here like I'll start a podcast and I listen to someone for a podcast talk about like the five like writing in the five senses or like kind of breaking down how to try and incorporate those things more to like elevate your writing. And I'm not a
Mhm.
podcast girly. So after that podcast, have I listened to one since? No. But but I really like learning from people on TikTok. Honestly, TikTok has like really changed my life when it comes to writing
Mhm.
because even those people who offer those 30-second TikToks, they're like, this is what I just learned and now I'm putting it in my writing. I'll go, oh, interesting. Like maybe I didn't think of that before. And then I'm like aware and maybe I'll read some like articles about it online. But it was just like that there's so much information out there, but it can be exciting to learn it and it doesn't have to be so daunting.
Right. I
Was
like
like
that.
one of the things that stuck with me the most because I think it just impacted the way I view whenever something new comes along. Of course, I'll have the
Mhm.
moment where I'm just like, ugh, another thing I don't know. All right, well, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, of course, like that happens. But
Right.
then, like, okay, well, it's manageable. Like, she took 10 years and now she's like, you know, whenever she speaks, I listen.
Right.
Um, and then she had so much success, like with her first book. And obviously, I didn't come in here thinking I'm going to do the same after like after all the reality checks. But um now it's like, oh, well, now I'm excited to kind of follow in that process and like joining 20 books to 50K. It's like, okay, well, maybe this one won't hit, you know, the bestseller, but like that's okay because I have probably too many story ideas written down on notepads that I'd like to eventually get to. And like maybe it'll be one of those. Or then you look at Ruby Dixon and it's like her books were out for a really long time and then they caught on fire. And it's like
Mhm.
I never know with this industry. And it's like for now, I don't think I've had a passion like this. I don't know if really in over a decade. And despite even like the low lows, like I just always find myself wanting to keep going or coming up with new ideas or buying more pre-made covers. So like I'm
I'm
in
gonna have
this.
to take your wallet away.
Seriously, I have to like contact people. Like I have to have like a plan in place to be and send it to someone and be like, I'm thinking about doing this. And they're like, don't do it. And I'm like,
Don't
okay.
do
Like, darn it. I would, but I'm like, even Alexis in the comments, there was one cover I'd sent to her a while ago and for this book that's going to be coming out. If the cover's currently being designed, I paid someone to do a custom cover, but I would have bought this other cover because it inspired the whole story.
it. Mhm.
And you know, did I love everything about it? No, but I loved it anyway, regardless of like its imperfections. And when I sent it to my friends to the cover queen, yeah, I also do this to people too. I'll be like, you should check out these pre-made cover groups. Like there's a sale going. And then people are like, I've been looking at covers all day and I'm like, um, but I sent that cover to a couple friends and they were like, I know. And I was like, wait, what? And so then I didn't get that cover. And then there have been a couple covers since too that I'll like send and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. And then other people will be like, I don't think, and I'm like, damn you, because immediately my perception of it changes, and I'm like, oh, well, if they don't like it, then maybe it's not the right decision. So, like, I have people, but if I send a cover that I'm really thinking about, and I get a green light, PayPal, it's already charged. Like, it's just the way it is. But I
That's
guess it's
fair.
like having fun. As of now, I have. Wait, how many covers do I have in backstock?
Oh no.
It's not that many. Okay, I think I have 6 in backstock. One is for that first book I had written. It's kind of like sitting there. It's like the story's done. The other is for the story that I just started. But then I have a custom one on the way for the one that I'm about to publish. So like I have a lot of work to do. It's not like writing books takes a week and you can like turn them out. So I do need to like slow down, but it's also exciting because I haven't had anything that I felt this passionate about in a long time. And when I see a cover and I feel like it inspires a story or I think it's beautiful and I'm excited to write it, then like I want to get it. And so for now, I'm trying to stop, but I didn't plan on buying those 2 that I just bought in the past 2 weeks either. So I don't know. I talk a lot of game. I'm not buying cover till I write my books. I'll probably have more by the end of the year. That's just the way it's gonna go.
It's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
Uh, so, speaking of covers, A Monstrous Prey, you told us that you bought the cover and it inspired the novel. So, did you know you wanted it to be Mothman specifically, or was there a moment when you were like, I'm just gonna make him a winged creature? Like, when did it become Mothman, and when did it become the story that it is today?
So I didn't have the story. I saw this cover, the artwork, and my jaw dropped because I see so many covers
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And there are some where like you can kind of see where like I guess the designer could do better in certain areas, like especially with like illustrated hair and things like that. There's a lot of covers out there where it's like that doesn't look so.
Stop by colors. That's
That's
a
Nemi. I'll
Maria.
have to turn. I'll have to turn to Nemi now for like
Nemi, take her wallet away.
for the reprimand. Um,
She's taking
but
away
so
your PayPal privileges.
I saw this, and I think I had maybe written the story. Maybe it was in edits, and I ended up sending it to one of like my friends behind the scenes. I was like, "I'll show you the cover because I'm so excited about it." And then I showed it to her, and she went Mothman, and I went, "What's that?"
I love that that's the story. I love
No
that.
idea. I literally said to her, "What's Mothman? Who's Mothman?" And then I googled it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I kind of see it." But Thorin is more of like a Batman.
Right.
Um, but then when people like started to make those comments, I was like, "Does everyone know about this Mothman thing?" Because
Yes. Yes.
uh, okay, Nemi, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Because
You're gonna have to start
here's the
like
thing, like,
document.
cryptids have such a cult following. There is a statue in the United States where they have crafted Mothman out of metal. And it's very well known for his juicy backside.
Oh,
The author gave him cake, so much cake.
we love it.
And people make pilgrimages to Mothman to leave stuff like at his feet. And when it first started happening, the town around Mothman was so confused. I had no idea what's going on. At now they've got like TikTok attractions because people will just show up and they're like, "Oh, you're here for Mothman," and like into legend, like Bigfoot, Mothman, the New Jersey Devil, like all of those cryptids, including Cthulhu, who is one of my favorite, though he's more horror than cryptid. Uh, they they are forever. So I hope you understand that, like, should you go more Mothman, you will attract people like moths to a lantern. Uh, they hear Mothman and they're coming for cake. So
I love that. And see, I literally have no idea about any of these things. And then I just come on the scene and I'm like, "Hey guys, I'm here."
Like, oh, she wrote Muppet. It's like close enough.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll be over here like, well, you let me know. You read it. You tell me if I did because I don't know. I have to wait until you tell me. So
Fair. So this second book that you're putting out, you said it's also a monster romance.
yes, it's also see they're talking in the comments about how I'm pulling everyone down with me into the depths of pre-made cover addiction. I just sent Becca a cover today because I saw it for her book maybe, and I was like, "Hey Becca, it's on like it's only this much. Hey." Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah, so it's another dark monster romance. Dark because it deals with themes of captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then obviously I list like the triggers either on the front of the book or on my social media. For the one I'm writing now, Chosen by a Monster, it's in edits. Becca's actually reading it right now and she's going to let me know if it needs work. But I don't even really know all the triggers for that one at this point. But it's dark because it deals with like kind of a captivity situation. Monster because like you said before, there's umbrellas under everything. So like even the
Mm.
word monster, there's like it's so good. Becca. Um so like even like under all the umbrellas, right? Like I wouldn't think that my monster is similar to your monster. Like I would say your
Mm.
monster is more monster than my monster. Um,
Fair.
and I'm talking about like the sketch of the ones that you put up recently.
Oh yeah, of Marcus Hauntings, the
Yeah,
My Tentacle Man.
yeah, your tentacle man. So I would say like you're probably like further into the monsters, and I'm more so like when you look at Thorin on this cover, he's still pretty human.
Right. He's a
Like
hot guy with wings and antlers.
yeah, yeah, and so same kind of deal with this next story. He's like
Mhm.
Hawkeye, he's just got steely gray skin, he's got horns, and he's got a tail that can be very violent or pleasurable. And and that's the monster version of this. But then also in this monster realm, I kind of wanted to explore other kinds of monsters. So you hear ridiculous things like in this market there's this one guy who's got like 20 blinking eyes and his eye wanders to like the main character's backside and then the main
Smash.
character you smash and then the main character like holds up his deadly tail as in like keep your eye to yourself buddy. So like i'm
It's funny
kind
of him.
I'm kind of like experimenting with like writing about monsters but like they're not my main characters at this point but I'm trying to incorporate it more because I don't want people who love like the entire monster like really far from people monster readers to come into my book and be like, oh, this is it. Because I'm sure that happened here. Like they're a race of like these monsters, but like, I don't know. My book is maybe more fantasy kind of set up than paranormal set up. I think just like my writing
Mhm.
style as of now. Um, so like, I don't know if it works. Like a lot of people are not my ratings on Goodreads have been consistently going down. So I am not finding, I guess, my target readers as of now. But like at the end of the day, like they are monsters, but they're just maybe not, I guess it just all comes down to the marketing and how you portray them. So it is dark,
Mhm.
it is monster. It's like mafia vibes. I don't say mafia because it's not like straight up mafia, but it's like a twist on mafia kind of thing. So
I just got the world's stupidest pun in my head, but Mothia.
wait, I don't get it.
Hold on, I'm sorry. In the so Mothia
Uh-huh.
instead of Mafia because he's
Oh my
Mothman.
gosh. Oh, that's funny. now, now I get it. Now I get it. Sorry, it took me a second.
Uh, that would be the intrusive thoughts working its way into my brain. But
That's
when it
like
comes to like
that's classic Lizzie Strong to me, and I love it.
you absolutely hear those intrusive thoughts in my writing because that's all the italics words is just the characters. All of my characters have intrusive thoughts. It's just part of my writing style. People have to get used to it. But I would say like the great thing about monster romance is there is a level to monster because like there's level 1, which is like they're shifters or like they're vampires, which means they're basically human, but like with some fun like advantages. And then there's like level 4 where me and Opal Rain are, where we're like, he's got a skull for his face, he's got a tentacle mustache, he
Yeah.
looks like the demon dog from Mage's Bride, like, and people are like, I'm down to clown with some bone mask guy
Yeah.
and a tentacle in an Italian suit, like. Uh, there are levels, and some people only stay like at level 1 or 2 because that's like as comfortable as they can be. And there are people who are wild and out there, like me and Opal, who are like, he's got tentacles that come out of his cloaca and it's frilled. And people are like, I didn't even know that was a technical term, but do you know how many animal bits I've had to look up? my my search history is atrocious. So everyone's got a white bit before. Like when I croak, I've already told my husband. I've written into the will. Someone,
She did. She did say cloaca.
I don't think it's right the way that I said it. Uh, I think it's called cloaca or something like something regular. But my ADHD, I've only ever seen this word written out, so I. Yeah, no, I said that. But some people stay at their level because that's what they're comfortable with. Some people like go. No, it's
Clo-
cloac.
yeah,
Uh,
cloaca.
okay. I thought, I thought so. Uh, but kind of veering back in your so your monsters are more like on the softer levels.
Yeah. Introductory monster, I feel like.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine because people eat up shifter romance. So people eat up like soft boy monsters. Um because it's dark romance, but the romance itself isn't necessarily dark. Um why did you choose to have like a dark theme and like a dark outside, but like a soft, warm, cuddly like romance inside?
Um, this goes back to I'm gonna like people are gonna come at me so hard, but like I said before, right? I didn't read any monster romance before I wrote
Mm.
monster romance, and it's gonna sound okay. Don't cancel me, you guys. Okay. Um, and so when I thought of like how looking at this cover, because this cover just like based all of it, right? So looking at
Right.
this cover, I was thinking, I'm like, how can a regular girl, like me or like Jade, get to a point where she's like willing to sleep with something that looks like that? And I assumed from not reading any monster things, I was like, oh, well, things around her probably got to be pretty bad. And like, and of course, like, I love a romance where like the guy is, kind of head over heels willing to like, do anything for the girl. That's just like, oh, the soft spot. Um, and so like painting him in that way was kind of easy, but like setting up the world in a dark scenario, I was like, because I couldn't think of a way for like monsters like this to like interact with humans without it
Mhm.
being like, and just the way it came out in my mind was like it had to be like a conflict, like the monsters have to be bad, you stay away, so that by the time the romance comes in and it's sweet and the love grows, it like comes from this place of maybe like not adversity but like conflict that like grows
Mhm.
into something more. So I think that I did it because I was like, well, how can I get her from point A to point B, but then also like have it feel like this kind of like expansive, great kind of overcoming love story. And like I said, like I didn't read. And so when people are like talking about, how they love all these other books, and then I hear the term like cozy monster romances, I said, wait, they're not all dark. I assumed they all were. And so, I mean, now I've obviously learned a lot, but like that was just how this kind of plot unfolded. And then with this other story, I started writing it because I didn't want this to be like a one-off in my backlist, like dark monster romance. So I wanted something else that, like, if people were into that, there was something else to reach for. And then this, like, he's like a cinnamon roll kind of
Mhm.
character, like in his own way, but like once you get to like his internal thoughts and everything, I just love him. But then in this next book that I'm writing, I wanted to experiment with the Morley Gray kind of character,
Mm.
which I hadn't written before, and I hadn't even really read a lot of before. Classic, I don't really read. So like I'm just out here experimenting, trying to fit all these pieces together that I see. And like obviously I watch, a bunch of movies. A movie I really enjoyed a while ago. Well, it was Dracula, but I think was it Luke Evans?
Yep, Dracula Untold.
I loved that. And so when I kind of saw this story unfolding, I kind of felt like those darker kind of like aesthetics and vibes for it. Hi, Derek. And then for this other book, I was trying to like stretch my creativity aspect of like, okay, well, what if he's not, like a cinnamon roll? What if he's a little bit more like Morley Gray is, the So then I was like trying to experiment with that. And I think even despite, I don't know if Becca's still in here or if she can attest to it. I think even my attempts at making him morally gray slightly falter because I can't help just wanting the men to just love these women so much. So I don't know how it's going to turn out. I think it's like, I don't know, fun enough. Like my character, she's like a spoiled, pampered princess, but like not to like the degree, like
Mhm.
she like has like worked hard in her past and just where her circumstances were, and then getting sacrificed at the rift, and then coming into like this new environment. And so I'm trying to play around, and I might have to tighten it up with like he's very like when I ask a question, you answer. Do you
Mhm.
understand? He's very much like that. The "Do you understand" line. Oh, he uses it a lot, and I like it. And then I'm trying to play up maybe to make her like princess, but maybe stretch that to like maybe bratty a little bit.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to like play with these like tropes and themes um in this next one. But like I said earlier, when I like the books that I tend to like a lot, they tend to be just darker.
Mhm.
And like the movies that I watch, like I like when they're like darker. And so like I think just my creativity lands in that kind of plane and like breeds there, you know,
Mhm.
as opposed to like starting somewhere else and turning it dark. I kind of start off in the
Fully
dark.
in the dark.
Yeah, like dark concepts, dark situations, but not necessarily like dark relationships between people. So I don't know. I don't really know
Right.
if that answers your question.
It does, because there are a lot of dark romances where it's the romance itself isn't dark, it's the context around it.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of my favorite like mafia romances, or a lot of my favorite like he's the boss romances, the outside of the relationship is really intense and dark because a lot of bad things are happening, obviously, with the criminal aspect of mafia romances, like
Yeah.
the outside is dark, but like
Yeah.
he's a simp, and as a simp connoisseur and writer, we love simp. We
We
love simp
love it.
men. I will gobble up a he's grumpy and angry and mean to everyone else, and he goes, "Oh, honey, not you. I'm not talking about you. I love you. You're so sweet. Fuck you." And like,
Yeah.
I live for that.
Yeah.
Uh, it may be because I watched too many like crime mobster Goodfellas shows when I was younger, and he's always in love with his wife. Like the Don is always like his old lady is his favorite person in the world, and he hates everyone else, and he's very mean. I think I might have watched that a little too young, but um but specifically for A Monster's Prey, since that's the one you've got out, for anyone who hasn't read it, go ahead and like pitch the synopsis or like the back of the book, so that people know what the book is actually about.
Do you ever have this as a writer? People are like, "What's your book about?" You go,
Instant blank moment, which is why I'm glad when people bring their books. I was like, you can just read the back, whatever you already put,
I know.
totally fine.
I heard that and I was like, "Oh man, I might have to reach for it." Um, because and something I didn't know until someone told me on what was it? not Goodreads. What's that other one? Book?
Storygraph or
Storygraph.
Mhm.
Um, someone had like they ask a question, I guess, when you're rating it, and it's like, is it more plot driven or character driven? And someone selected
Right.
character driven. I went, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I see that. Okay, so okay, my story becomes, I think, more character driven in A Monster's Prey once you get past the external world.
Mm.
So we start off with our main character Jade, and the world is set up in such a way that there are this species of monsters who, over the years started to come out at night, and they
Mhm.
fly, but like they're completely black, so like they come out at night when kind of camouflage, um, and they end up abducting women. So women end up going missing, and so in order to counteract that, the measures that are taking place are that curfews are implemented, like citywide, not nationwide, but like in the cities that are affected. They're implemented where women aren't allowed out after dark, because, and it's briefly mentioned that like the efforts of like the military and tracking and everything have failed. And so the only way to like kind of keep the women safe is like, okay, well, women now are not allowed out after dark.
Mm.
Which obviously in a perfect world, people don't always listen to the rules, right? For a myriad of reasons. And so there are still like circumstances in which women are out at night, but a lot of men are also out at night because they are free to be out at night.
Mhm.
And so sometimes for the small few women who are out at night, sometimes that is a problem for them. And in our first chapter, our main character Jade, she works too late one night. It's after sunset, and she ends up deciding, in case she's going to walk to her apartment instead of sleeping in her small corner office. So she decides to leave, and she's in like the business district, and so basically it's like a ghost town. So all of these business buildings that are bustling throughout the day, but at nighttime, complete silence.
Right.
And so she's walking along, but she's keeping her eye out and whatnot, and she starts to hear voices. And this is not like a brief synopsis at all.
No, I'm
And,
loving this though.
and so then she hears it, and there's a term deemed for like the men who are out at night who can cause problems for women. They're called nightmen. And so she hears the nightmen. So she runs to the nearest alley and she hides behind a dumpster. As she's waiting there for them to pass, she realizes they're not passing, and they actually enter the same alley that she's in. And she's convinced that they saw her and that she's trapped herself and she's going to have to experience something terrible. While she's in that alley, she starts to hear these sounds and these things start to happen. And one of the monsters from the sky has come down and has actually unalived the nightmen. And the woman who they had in their grasp was able to flee. Um, and while she's there, she can't really see. It's dark in the alley and whatnot. There's a pew pew that goes off, and then there's kind of silence, but someone stumbles and breaks the glass and whatnot. So she doesn't know what has just happened. She's heard some things, she's seen some things go flying. It's dark, she doesn't know what's going on. She ends up going into the office building, seeing the after wreckage that has been wrought. And she's like, whoever just fought and freed that woman has now stumbled inside and is injured. I heard why they're injured. I'm going to go in and save them. When she walks into the room, she sees one of these guys on the floor, passed out, bleeding out, essentially. So she tends to him because she felt guilty for not doing anything to help the woman in the first place. And then someone came, helped the woman, and she's like, well, now I have to help, this monster, even though this whole situation doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't understand, but my conscience won't let me leave him this way. So she helps him. And that's the first chapter. The next chapter is like 3 years later, and our main character has grown to the sense where she's no longer afraid of the night, of the curfew. She knows that these monsters can be taken down by a single gunshot, and she has no remorse for if she has to do that same thing for a nightman, like a nightman who's going to come and do terrible
Right.
things. Unfortunately, that leads to a little bit of overconfidence, leads to her downfall, and she ends up being taken away by a different monster to the monster's lair. And it's in that lair where we have kind of more conflict between, why the women are there in the first place, how, the one she saved recognizes her by scent when she gets there. And now he kind of wants to protect her despite like the traditions of his brethren. And it's kind of a story of what he can do to protect her. And as that grows and grows near the end of the story, things kind of start to come to a head. And yeah, it's a really like, you'll be like near the end of the book, right? Like I'm talking like the last like 3 pages or so, and you're gonna be like, does this end on a cliffhanger? Because it goes right up until like the end, but it's like a very quick resolution. And then I have a little bonus extender scene that's like in my newsletter. If you sign up for it, you can get it. And then there's an epilogue, which gets like your HEA.
Mm-hmm.
But there are plans for a second book to this. But I just don't know when in my schedule that's going to come up. So it's not one of my more, I don't know how to word that. It's not one of my upcoming projects, but
Right.
it's on the docket. It is like a self-contained enough story. But kind of from a lot of the reviews I was getting, people were like, we want to know more. And I was like, you do? So
Yeah.
I did have plans for a second story, but after hearing a lot of like people asking to kind of elaborate, I was like, okay, then this is something that I will, want to
Come
do.
back to.
It's a self-contained story. You might be left wondering a little bit about, kind of their origins or whatever, because it doesn't get, talked about, but it's a love story. Like I don't know if it's like necessarily forbidden, but like people who shouldn't feel this way for each other do.
Right. Um, I love that. So then Thorn is the one that she saves in chapter 1. Then.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so then, would you say your book is particularly spicy? Is it non-spicy? Is it fade to black? Where are we on the scale?
So Rihanna is one of my beta readers, and excuse me, she left a hilarious Goodreads review. Um, I would say it's a medium burn,
Mm,
which like maybe you wouldn't necessarily expect. Slow to medium, but I would say closer to medium. But then she says, but once you hit that mark, they go like rabbits. And so it takes spice happens before 70% of the book is finished. But in that last 30%, there are 7 scenes.
oh boy. You were
So it
like, oh, when we get to the spice, it just doesn't stop.
yeah. So like I try and like promote in my videos. I'm like, listen, like it's kind of like a slow burn, but like it's worth it because when you get there,
When you get there, the spice is there.
yeah.
It's a
And
spicy.
yeah, and I didn't intend for it to go that way. Like when I was writing a monster romance, I didn't plan on writing like a slow to medium burn. It just kind of came out that way. Um, so then in this next book, in Chosen by a Monster, I tried to amp it up faster because I was like, people don't want to wait for this. Like, come on. So I'm trying to like incorporate things. Like it's kind of like an experimental kind of story where I'm trying to toss in new things and like make them work. I think it's turning out really well. Like I enjoy it a lot. Um, but it's like this is a project where I'm kind of trying to stretch my abilities.
Mm,
So this one was just like saw the cover, was inspired, wrote the story because I wanted to write it. How it ended up turning out, I figured it out after and then started talking about it. This one, I'm trying to plan ahead what I want the book to have in it. Um, but so it's just, I don't know, writing is just a big old experiment. So I don't know what you'll see more of by the time I get, 5, 6 books out in a backlist. I don't know what my writing style will keep or what it won't. It's just kind of, we're
fair.
doing stuff.
I like that. So then you would probably consider yourself more of a pantser than like a plotter or a planner.
So originally, huge pantser.
Mm.
Um, by the time I got to the second book in my duology that's unpublished, by the time I hit like halfway, 60%, I had to plot like point by point, chapter by chapter, because this is my first time building up this world and these stories, and then you have to reel it back in. And
Right.
so by the time I was getting to the end, I was like, okay, I need to make sure, I'm tying up all these loose ends. And I really enjoyed the speed at which I could write my book when I had most of it figured out and plotted.
Mm.
Then I wrote that novella, which was, I think, just all flying by the seat of my pants. And uh, then the Fae fantasy, I had a little bit more structure, I think. But then in Monsters Prey, like I had talked to my critique partner and we had vocalized, like we knew what the plot points were, what the problems were going to be, where the conflicts were going to come in, how their relationship was going to evolve. But then I just wrote it.
Mm.
I didn't sit there and say, okay, chapter 1 is this, and chapter 2 is this, and chapter 3 is this. And then that's how at the end of it I came out with, more of a slow burn book than I had anticipated, because I didn't like
Mm.
plan it enough, I guess. I'm still happy with how it turned out. Like I love their story. Um in this book, I think same thing. I didn't so much plan out chapter by chapter. Um but I like when I do. So I have kind of a rough outline. So
Mm.
say the in between, right? Like the planter.
Mm.
And then this retelling that I'm writing, I'm literally about to be 6 chapters in, and I'm like, I don't know where the story's going. It's literally just all happening as I'm sitting at the computer. So it's like I've reverted back to kind of pantsing, and I'm like, well, I know the overall arcing plot, I know where she needs to get to, but how I'm getting her from point A to point B sometimes ends up being like this much plot fills in between because it just happens as it happens, and so
Mm.
I flip flop.
That's
I
fair.
I wish I was consistent. I love when I see these authors on here who have like, the boards up and they
Yeah.
have everything connects and step by step, and it's this person's POV, and then this is like, their main conflict, and the character development switches here and whatever. And I love the way that that looks, and I would love for my brain to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, it's literally me sitting right here on this couch with my computer going, well, I think she's going to go here next. And
Not
I
me.
it comes together, and like I'd like to think that they do, but I mean, who knows?
You're in good company here because I know I irritate the snot out of Nemi with the fact that I will. So my plot is that I will sit up straight in my bed, usually about 2 a.m., and be like, but what if he was a dragon? And I type into my phone, he's a dragon. His name is Amadeus Worthington. He goes into heat. He forgot that he's going into heat. Surprise, she's a succubus. Go back to sleep. Nonsense. I wake up the next morning and I open a blank document. And then by the end of the weekend, I'm at like a certain amount of words. And it drives my friends crazy because they're like, so, like, what's the plot? And we're like, we'll figure that out together.
You're like, listen, they'll tell me when we get there.
Right. The image of an author like following behind characters, that's me because I will have an idea for like how we enter the story, but anything after that is it nose goes, it up in the air. Um I won't know the ending until like when the reader finds out about the ending is about when I found out about the ending. Um
The reader's like, I didn't see this coming. You're like, me either.
Surprise! And I love when people are like, "Oh my god, you put like an Easter egg in this." I was like, "I did."
I love that so much. People have done that to me too. They're like, oh, and at this point here, how this connects, and I'm like, oh yeah,
I
I could have
think
done
that's smart. There's like some inherent part of your author brain that's actually working, but the frontal cortex is like putting words on the page.
Yeah, yeah.
And then people are like, "But they connect."
Literally, I thought that too. Honestly, I think that one of the biggest parts of me writing is like my subconscious.
Yeah.
It's it's keeping track of things that I'm not thinking about. And then at one point I'll write something and I'll be like, oh, well then that ties into that perfectly. Okay. Like it's someone else is back there pulling the puppet string.
It's like, no, 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 no. Go left, go left, go left.
Yeah, honestly, I've said that before. I'm like, really? It's like I'm just kind of like on autopilot, and then something will click, but in the most like beautiful way. I'm like, I couldn't have planned that if I tried. But for some reason, I got here, and it's so cool.
I just, I love when, it's just your brain is like, oh, no, no, no. If he's wearing red shoes, then he's the unaliver. And then you get to there and you're like, that makes so much sense. But like, had you asked me 2 chapters earlier, I couldn't tell you. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
it's what that's one of my favorite things about writing. Like just how it kind of all seems to like fall into place. Of course there are
Mhm.
moments when it definitely doesn't and you're like none of this is working. But those moments where those things happen and you sit back and honestly sometimes I go, "Damn, I'm good."
Right?
But like
You're like,
it's not even me.
there's the intelligence that I so thought I was.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm stuck right now in my retelling because I last night as I was writing the scene, I was like, "Ooh, I think in the next chapter, I didn't have anything planned. She's supposed to go meet a prince, but I was like, "Ooh, but maybe in the next chapter she'll go to the market." And then I think I thought of something that would happen at the market that I would tie in later on in the book. And then when I finished the chapter and I made a note for myself, like next chapter will be the market scene, I literally put in there, I forget why I wanted that. I don't remember why I wanted her to go to the market. And I'm kind of like a little bit stumped. And I was literally thinking earlier, I was like, if I get stumped on this project, I could easily message Lizzie because she will give me some of the most like out of the box ideas. And maybe that would be a good point, like a good jumping point for me to like get out of like kind of like where I'm stuck because I'm like, sometimes you just feel blocked. But like when I've heard you like talk about, oh, like the Beaver Man, and then when this, and just the way that the plot, like I watched
The
it
way it
unfold.
happens.
I just watched it unfold, and I was just like, how?
And the worst part is like the beaver story happened because like after we got off the beaver call, I was convinced that I wanted to do like a were beaver, and I was thinking it was just gonna be 2 people, and then out of nowhere, I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, so is someone gonna use like Bigfoot? And my brain went, but what if there was Bigfoot?
Yes, I remember you talking about that, and then you talked about the plot of how like the girl and like I remember just watching this, and I'm like, where does she come up with this? But wow, that's a lot of plot. And so I was like, kind of stuck on plot. I should probably go ask Lizzie.
You can reach out to me anytime. My it sometimes it seems unhinged, but it just seems to work out in the end somehow.
Yeah.
Uh, it like most of my ideas are like, oh, I've got two. My ideas always start with the people. We figure out what happens as we go along. Uh, and like when I'm like, oh yeah, this person's gonna do this, it's like they spite me. They're like, oh no no no, fuck that idea. We're going over here. They're like,
Literally. I think sorry. I think that when I started getting to the writing community and I would hear people say things like that, like,
mm-hmm.
oh, my characters, they said this and I didn't expect it, or, I wanted them to do this and they ended up doing something else. I think I sat there in my judgmental seat going, but you're the writer.
Right.
And then as I've gotten into it, in my faith fantasy, I got to the point where I'm like, they're kind of fighting. I didn't plan for them to be fighting right now, but like
Why
they're
do they
supposed
get
to love,
spicy?
yeah, they're supposed to be the love interest, and they're bashing right off the bat. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think I didn't want this. And that was one of the first experiences where I was like, this is opposite of what I was intending, because sometimes like the characters, they'll do things that I didn't plan on, but it's still really just like subconsciously, I guess, like works, ties in really well. I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. Oh, I guess she would do. Okay, I guess we're going here. But that was the first time where I was like, whoa, guys, I'm a bystander, and I didn't know that this could happen. But I'm like, how did we get here and how do we circle back, you guys? Like we need to have like an author character therapy session because something's out of whack here and I don't know where we go from here.
How do I get back to the plot? Because now we're on a ship going to England and we weren't even supposed to leave the States.
Yeah, like it's honestly, and I'm like, but it's so fun. Like experiencing those things is so fun. And even though it's like frustrating and stressful and overwhelming because there's so much you have to like factor in and you're trying to work in like foreshadowing or like side characters that are lovable and do they have their own little plot lines that you need to like throw in there and you're trying to like weave in all these things. But like at the end of the day, like writing is just so fun. And I'm just like loving it. And like I hope the things I produce end up being like enjoyable enough that they're not regrets.
Right.
And for some people they will be, and then some people will just stop because they'll be like, nah, not for me. But like, I think it's really cool that already there's been hundreds of people who have read this book. Like
Right.
that, that's a wild. And like my TikTok likes to cap me. Like I rarely hit over 300 views on a video.
Yeah.
And I try to experiment all the time with like, the hashtags or the sounds or the time of day I'm posting. And sometimes I'll set like alarms on my phone so that I can try and post because I'm trying to like see what will work and what won't. But like for the most part, it doesn't matter. I say it all
Yeah.
around the same. Like my TikTok reach can only go so far, but whenever I like check my KDP dashboard, like even the past couple days, I'm like, where are you readers coming from? Like
Right.
people must just
Uh,
be talking about the book or like because I hit over 50 reviews on Amazon. I'm like, Amazon must have like maybe recommended it. But I'm like, this is so like cool. Like you're just out here living your best life in the world, right? Like that's so cool.
it is one of my favorite parts is like uh you get a little down because TikTok does not help and then like other platforms it's hard to get a standing and at like I was baffled at how I hit 10K but yet my videos do mid and I was like I don't understand where you people are coming from
Yeah.
and yet I'm still getting page reads consistently and like it baffles me how it all works, but it is one of the delightful things when someone like a new review rolls in and they're gushing about it and you're like, that was my brainchild and I'm so glad you liked it.
Oh, yeah. Cause like we see these characters so vividly.
Mm,
We write them and we know their hearts and we like feel their pain or their betrayal or all this other stuff. And like if someone else can pick up on something, like that, and it's like, oh, like you got to tap into this world with me and like experience it. Like it's so cool.
so that kind of begs one of my favorite questions I like to ask authors, which is since you've gone through and you've put out this book, if you had the spoons and like time, money, and effort wasn't a question,
Okay.
what would you do?
Out of anything in the entire world.
Anything. And it doesn't actually have to be book related. It could be, oh, I'm going to Germany and I'm exploring a castle. Like, what's the dream?
My dream, my circumstance is not ideal in life right now at all, but I currently am very blessed that writing is all I'm doing right now. I don't have like a partner, kids. My dog died, so I don't have any pets to take care of. Like, so it's literally just me. And in the situation I'm in now, financially, I don't have to worry so much. But like that's coming to an end in an undetermined amount of time. But as of right now, I'm loving being able to like write full time. And when I say full time, I'm not doing it 8 hours a day. I don't have those spoons. But kind of the dream that I would love is I definitely want to like have my own house um and be able to like financially support myself completely.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. And I would love either beach vacations or to like live near the water or like maybe more like in a country foresty kind of area. But I would love that and to just sit and to be able to write, either looking at the water at the beach or sitting outside in like, a really nice garden and just the trees are all around and like tapping more so into like the quietness of nature
Mm-hmm.
and then just being able to write my stories. That's kind of like the dream right now. Like I want to, but I'm also a disaster of a person. And so when I think of that kind of dream, I'm like, oh, you wake up with the sun and, you have your tea and you look out on the water and then, you write and, then you work out and you meal prep and all this stuff. I'm sleeping until noon every day. And then I'm up for 2 hours and I have a nap. And then, I'll throw something in the microwave and I'm like, there were no greens in that, but I guess that's fine. And then I sit down and I write in the wee hours of the night and I have so much fun doing it. And then I just do it all over again. So like the dream life I envision, I don't think I'm suited for it. But if I could have that environment while I'm writing, I feel like I would be completely at peace with everything.
Right.
Yeah. What about you? What's your answer to that question?
So if I had the money, time, and effort to just do something, I would love to like first off, I would like to go to Disney World when it's not busy.
Mm.
I live in Florida, so like I wanna and I hate Disney at the same time. But I would love to go there and be one of those girlies who writes in the park and like has that aesthetic like I'm sitting at the coffee shop and I've got my Mickey Mouse mug and like I'm typing.
Yeah.
But my ADHD would never allow me to do that. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like my dreams, I'm not necessarily suited for them, but I want them.
right. I want to like just once try like bringing my laptop, look all cool in like one of the big cafes and like just be typing and people will be like, who's that mysterious pink-haired lady writing in the cafe? And more it's just me going like this. And like the aesthetic version of me in my brain is not the way that I look because when I'm typing, I look like a gremlin. I am hair up in a bun, headphones stuck to the side of my face, and I'm scribbling like a madman.
Yeah.
I'm along the same lines, but I would also like to, um, like drop a book, that's completely out of my comfort zone. I would love to do something absolutely wild, like a historical romance, which is a 360 from what I write right now. But I would love to make it monster somehow. I don't know how I would ever swing that. Sam Nacosta currently has like a Pride and Prejudice monster romance that she's about to put out, which I
Ooh.
guarantee is going to inspire me, but into the unfortunateness of trying and then realizing halfway through, I actually don't want to write historical romance. I just like the idea of it. I don't like writing anything before the toilets were invented,
Currently,
like flushing toilets.
literally in my book right now, I got to a point and I was like, wait a minute, is it cool if I have running water here? Because it's like kind of, medievally and stuff.
Right,
And then I was like, you know what? I'll say it's a new invention. All right, there's running pipes now. So I just wrote that in
right.
because I didn't want to
It's
have to
your
deal.
world.
Yeah, because I didn't want to have to deal with, she was about to have a bath. What am I going to make her haul 20 buckets of water that heat up on the fire? No, there's running water. Okay.
There's
There's
running
running
water.
water. And she filled her tub. Done.
As a fantasy author, if it's my world, I can decide if they have plumbing. So
Yeah.
that's
Totally.
just uh and then another question is what would you say if anyone doesn't remember anything we talked about during this live, what is something you want people to walk away after either reading your books or meeting you or watching this live?
I think that's what you asked me. Um, this is gonna sound so cheesy. Um, just like pursue your dreams because if I can walk into this space as confidently as I did and end up completely pivoting my direction of genre, releasing things I've never even read, and I'm having fun. Like, like the success part would be amazing. As of now, it's not necessarily there, but like I'm having successes for myself that like I couldn't have had if I didn't just like do it. If I didn't just
Mhm.
try or start, or I wouldn't have realized how much I love this and how much fun I'm having. I wouldn't have met, my closest friends now are all writer friends from Book Talk. Like, and at the beginning, like at this pandemic, I was going to school in the States and then I had to come back home. And so I was back, in my hometown, and like my whole world was like kind of just like lonely. But like now, fast forward, here I am. And like it was, hard work and time, but like it's been so fun. And I'm so glad to be where I'm at. And even though, I'm not the most qualified and I'm probably not going to reach, like New York Times bestseller status or like USA Today or whatever, I'm having like the best time I feel like in my life. And so like no matter like what your dreams are, like where you're coming from, what skills you have or skills you don't, like just use the unearned confidence that Lylah Taylor has to walk into a space and say, I'm going to do this anyway.
I love that. I love that about you. I love that for you as well, because that just seems like a fantastic way to go through life. Uh, um, so then, for the kind of like the outro part, um, is there anything that you don't currently have right now that you would like to do? So obviously we're doing like paranormal next. You've got one more monster romance coming out. If you could just like do something random for the lulz or because you wanted to, what would it be?
Um, so I have plans. I have a pre-made cover currently for a older brother's best friend contemporary romance, which I want to like write a little novella about. But then I also have this mafia duology planned. But then I also have like three separate kind of sci-fi stories that I have planned. And then I've got like some fantasies and some paranormals and some like high fantasy. So like I'm literally all over the map. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so at this point, there's nothing burning that like I'm like, oh, I'd really like to do that next because I already kind of have plans to do them all.
Fair. Absolutely fair. I like it. So then go ahead for everyone who is in chat, go ahead and reintroduce yourself, what book you have out, what book is coming next, and where people can find you.
Okay, so I am author Lylah Taylor. I'm currently a dark monster romance writer. My first book, A Monster's Prey, is currently out now, available for purchase on Amazon, and it's in the Kindle Unlimited store. It was on Barnes and Noble, but not anymore because I'm international and there was like a form I had to submit and I didn't get to it, so I just took it down. It might go back up eventually. But my next book, Chosen by a Monster, is also another dark monster romance. It is currently up for pre-order on Amazon. It will also be in Kindle Unlimited when it releases. My TikTok, Lylah Taylor, author?
Yes.
Is that okay? Yeah, Lylah Taylor, author. And then my Instagram is Lylah Taylor Writes.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to discuss that we didn't already touch on?
I don't think so. This has been so much fun. I've so looked forward to having this interview with you. And I think you bring such an energy to all of your interviews and such like a friendly, relatable personality that like I have social anxiety sometimes, and like the thought of, getting on live with, someone that I don't really know or haven't really talked to that much before, it can be like really nerve-wracking. But I haven't had any of that because I feel like, well, I've seen Lizzie. I know how she interacts. Like she's so friendly, she's so bubbly. I feel like you ask great, insightful questions, and every time I'm watching, I'm like, oh, I want to make sure that I ask her when she asks me a question. I want to be like, and what about you? Because like I care what you have to say, and I want to hear like your insights of things. So I tried to do that a few times tonight, and I think it's so fun to like peek into other writers and their styles. And as of this point, I'm not a cozy romance author, so it's interesting to hear from your perspective, like your wild plot lines for like your cozy
So
monster.
fuckers.
And I love it so much. I think that you do a lot for authors in this community because um, I don't think I would be like reaching out to ask people to like do these interviews because like like imposter syndrome and then like social anxiety and all this stuff. And so like when you reached out to me, it just made me feel like I don't know, really good. And I think that you're doing such a great job and I hope that you know how wonderful you are.
Thank you so much. It definitely helps because sometimes I'm not gonna lie, there have been some authors where I like slid into their DMs and I was like, "Hey, would you mind if I interviewed you?" And immediately, right before sending, I was like, "I shouldn't do this. I'm not cool enough. I'm not cool enough." And
Oh,
then like some part of my brain was like, "Fuck it, click." It's
yes,
like I'll
I
be
love that.
fine.
I love that. Well, I'm glad. Keep doing it because it's so much fun. And I feel like a lot of the times, like I rarely leave my house, to be honest, and I'm usually on TikTok all the time. You'll probably notice, I'm in people's lives, I'm commenting and all this stuff. So like watching people host these lives and getting to see other authors and stuff, like it's a great way for me to feel like I'm being social, even if I'm like just in the
Right,
comments or whatever. So
just a
I
little
love,
bit.
yeah, I love when people have things like this, and it's like lets everyone feel involved, and I think it's just really cool.
So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for putting out a monster romance because as a monster writer and connoisseur, I always enjoy when people either give the romance genre a try, but especially monster romance because sometimes humans not good enough anymore. But for everyone who is still in the chat and has stuck with us throughout the long run of this interview, hi, my name is Lizzie Strong. I'm a monster romance author where the monsters are spooky, scary, but the romance is cute and cuddly. I do these interviews usually twice a week. This week, I'm pretty sure I'm going live every day because I have done that to myself. Um, but so today, obviously, I got the honor to interview, that word was hard, Lylah Taylor, and tomorrow I will be interviewing Barbosa Books. Thursday I will be interviewing, oh goodness, who did Cala Claire. And then this Saturday, I will be interviewing Miss BJ from A Widow's Web. So if any of those authors are your faves, or if you know any authors that you would like to see interviewed, absolutely leave them in my comments. But other than that, I would like to bid you all a good night. Bye.
Thanks, Lizzie. Bye.
Bye.